Hey everybody, I'm Dave Stiefvater, and I'm here to show you everything there is to know about your MBS mountain board.
The first thing to do when working on your board is to find a good place to work, somewhere inside with good light. We'll start with the wheels. The components that make up a mountain board wheel are the hubs, bearing, tube, inner and outer spacer, and the tread or tire. The tools you'll need are a 3mm hex, 15mm wrench, and a crescent wrench.
MBS makes three types of hubs: the Rockstar, the Twistar, and the Tri-Spoke.
The most common thing you'll have to fix on your mountain board is a flat tire, and that comes from a pop or a leak in the tube. If the valve is messed up, you will need to get a new tube. To fix a flat, you can either patch the tube or replace it, but first you'll need to take the hub apart to get to the tread and take the tube out.
The first thing you'll want to do, no matter what kind of hub you have, is deflate the tire.
If you have twisters, first deflate the tires, then all you have to do is twist them apart. If you have Rockstars or Tri-Spokes, you'll need an Allen key to unscrew the bolts that hold them together. Put the bolts in a place where you won't lose them, because they are easy to misplace. Pull the hub apart, set the spacers aside so you don't lose them, and take the tube out of the tread. If you are replacing a flat tube, check the inside of the tread for whatever may have caused the flat. To patch a tube, you need to first find out where the leak is. Fill a bucket or sink with water. Put some air in the tube and hold it under the water. Squeeze the tube and find the bubbles that come out of it. That's where the leak is. Mark the spot with a Sharpie and dry off the tube. Next, you'll need to score the part of the tube that you will patch. With the sandpaper provided in the MBS patch kit, score the surface. This will help the glue hold. Make sure both the tube and patch are dry. Press the patch firmly to the tube. Hold it there for a minute and let it dry before pumping it up. To reassemble the wheel, put the deflated tube back in the tread. Then, if you have Rockstars or Tri-Spokes, take the outer spacer and feed the valve of the tube through the hole in the spacer. Make sure you push the valve through far enough so that the ridge at the bottom of the valve comes through. Now, put the hub back together around the tread and line up the holes for the bolts. It is best to also line up the valve between the hub spoke and the bolt, so a pump can fit onto it more easily. Put the bolts in and tighten them down with an Allen key. If you are planning on installing a brake, watch the chapter on brake installation before assembling the wheel completely. Now you're ready to pump up the tire. If you have Twistars, the process is easier. First, identify which hub is the inside hub and which is the outside. The outside is the side with printing on it. Fit the deflated tube onto the tread and place the tread and tube onto the outside hub. Make sure the valve stem aligns with the valve stem hole. Insert the inside hub into the outside hub and make sure the valve stem holes are aligned. Twist the two hubs together into the locked position. You're now ready to inflate the tire. Different tire pressures have different effects on how your mountain board performs. In general, the more pressure, the faster you will go. The less pressure, the slower you will go, and the more traction you will have. MBS recommends 35 psi. Be careful to never exceed 50 psi on Twistar hubs, as it is possible for the hubs to separate. Finally, install the bearings by pushing them into the hubs on each side. For Rockstar hubs, there's a plastic spacer that goes between the bearings. To put the wheel on the trucks, simply slide the wheel onto the axle and tighten the nut. Some riders will put the valve side on the inside of the board to avoid accidentally letting air out of the tube when the board is set on its side. Some people put the valve on the outside to make it easier to pump up their tires.
However, with Twistars, always make sure the outside hub is on the outside.
Tighten the nut all the way down, then loosen 1/4 turn so that the wheel spins freely. There should be a very small amount of play when you try to wheel the wiggle up and down. Next, I'll show you how to put the trucks on the board.
The tools you'll need are a 3mm hex, 4mm hex, 5mm hex, 14mm wrench, and a 15mm wrench.
We'll start with the Matrix trucks. Matrix trucks have 4 main components: the top truck, the bottom hanger, the springs, and the egg shocks. Eggs come in 3 levels of hardness: yellow, orange, and red. The 4 bolts at the top of the board attach it to the truck. They screw into the 4 holes that form a box shape. The kingpin nut should be on the inside of the board. The 2 adjustment screws on the outside of the truck fit through the pre-drilled holes in your board and are how you tighten and loosen your suspension.
To install the top truck to the board, line it up with the pre-drilled holes and push the screws through. Next, screw the nuts onto the end of each screw. Pull up on the screws to pull the nuts into the housing on the truck. Hold the nut in place with your finger while you tighten down each screw.
Before installing eggs and springs, put the wheels on the trucks to make it easier. The eggs and springs are the suspension of your board. The parts that make up each spring and egg combination are an adjustment screw, washer, top hat, spring, egg shock, bottom top hat, and a bottom screw. Place a spring on top of the bottom top hat and place the egg inside. Set that aside within reach. Now, stand on the opposite side of your board from where you are working, so it opens up the truck. Next, place the washer over the adjustment screw, then the top hat over the adjustment screw like this. Hold the adjustment screw with the washer and top hat in place with one hand. With your other hand, fit the top of the spring to the top hat and push the bottom into place. Flip your board over, align the hole for the bottom screw using an Allen key, and insert the bottom screw.
Repeat the process for the other spring.
Now you can tighten your adjustment screws. The tighter these screws, the more pressure you will need to turn the board. In general, you'll want your trucks loose for carving and turning depending on your weight. And you'll want them tight for going fast or hitting jumps.
To replace your eggs or springs, first, unscrew these screws with an Allen key until the top hat makes contact with the Matrix truck.
Then, remove the bottom top hat screw. Put the board on the floor and stand on one side of the board so the spring compresses. The tension should now be off of the other spring and you can remove it. Get off the board and the second spring should come out easily. There are 3 different types of eggs used by MBS. Yellow is the softest, orange is medium, and red is the hardest. These adjust the amount of pressure needed to turn the board. This is the Vector truck. MBS makes a variety of bushings with a variety of hardnesses.
To replace bushings, you need to take the truck apart. First, unscrew the kingpin and remove the plastic spacer. Next, twist the hanger off the top truck. You can now replace the bushings. To reassemble the truck,
place the lower bushing on top of the plastic base plate. Put the plate back onto the bottom of the hanger assembly. Place the top bushing on top of the hanger and install the kingpin. MBS uses a standard 4-hole pattern that makes all decks and trucks interchangeable. So, installing the Vector trucks to the board is the same as Matrix trucks. Installing the ATS trucks to the board is the same as Matrix trucks. To change the bushing, unscrew the kingpin all the way and the truck comes apart.
Just like the Vector trucks.
Replace the bushing and kingpin and screw the truck back together.
Adjust turning resistance by tightening the kingpin and using different bushing durometers. The tools required to install and adjust bindings are a 3mm hex, a 4mm hex, and a 10mm wrench.
To install bindings, First, figure out the most comfortable position of your feet on the board. This should be about shoulder width or wider. Then, with your feet on the board, place the bindings over them and line up the holes in the L brackets to the pre-drilled holes in the board. Put the washers on the screws and screw 2 screws into each bracket.
Repeat this process for the other bracket.
If you want to install heel straps, unscrew one screw that attaches the L bracket to the binding strap. Place the hole in the heel strap over the screw so that the MBS logo is right side up when looking at the heel side of the board. Put the binding strap back into position and screw into place.
Repeat this process for the other bracket.
Remove the ladder strap from the ratchet or cam lock and simply unscrew it from the binding strap. The cam lock and the ratchet buckle perform the same function on your board, but the difference is that the cam locks lock into one position on the ladder strap and the ratchet buckles are adjustable. You may also want to install a brake or leash to your mountain board. Disconnect the binding strap from the L bracket and slide the loop of the leash over the bracket. Brakes are useful for beginners, when doing single track or free riding, or when riding steep terrain. It is important to remember that brakes are not meant to stop the board completely, but slow you down. To install the brake disc on your wheel, they first need to be disassembled. Refer to the chapter on wheels to see how to do this. When mounting the brake disc to the Twistar hubs, screw the bolt directly into the hub. There are no nuts required. If you have rock stars, place the spacers over the screws. Then the disc over the screws on top of the spacers. Tighten down the nuts on all of these screws. Attach the leash to the deck using the leash truck mounting screws and washers included in the brake kit. The MBS V5 brake system fits on 3 types of MBS trucks: the Matrix, the Vector, and the ATS. On Vector trucks, the brake arms are mounted in a near opposite position. The correct position for the brake arms on Vector trucks looks like this. The rest of the brake system installation is the same as the Matrix trucks. The brake arms fit into the board like this. Make a note of which is the right and left. Use a 5mm hex key to screw the right brake arm assembly into the brake stud hole in the bottom truck. It's important to guide the spring alignment pin into the spring adjustment hole as you do this. Repeat this process for the left brake arm. Correctly assembled brake arms look like this. Slide the cable lead onto the end of the brake cable and over the cable casing like this. Feed the cable and cable casing through the bottom of the truck assembly. The cable should rest on the bottom corner of the bottom truck. Assemble the brake pads onto the brake arms. Push inward on the top of each brake arm so that the brake pad is pressed flush against the disc. Align the pad with the edge of the disc. The pad should not hang over the edge of the disc. Tighten the brake pad hardware using a 5mm hex. Continue to push inward on the top of the brake arm in order to hold the pad in place. Insert the cable lead into the cable lead unit attached to the top of the left brake arm. Slide the rubber cable boots over the end of the brake cable. Pull the brake cable through the notch provided in the right brake arm. Then tighten the cable locking screw just enough to prevent the cable from slipping. Use pliers to pull the slack out of the cable so that each brake pad is spaced approximately 1/16 of an inch from its disc. Tighten the cable locking screw using a 5mm hex key. The screw must be tightened enough to prevent the cable from slipping through the cable notch. Clip the excess brake cable and crimp the end onto the end of the brake cable. Use a 7mm wrench and Phillips head screwdriver to attach the cable clamp to the truck. A correctly installed brake system looks like this on a Matrix truck. and like this on a vector truck.
Maintain your V5 brake system by checking that all parts are secure and properly adjusted before and after each ride. This includes, but is not limited to, the following. Check that the cable adjustment screw is locked. Do this by making sure that the slots are not lined up. Check condition of brake pads. Tighten brake pads that are loose. Replace brake pads that show excessive wear. Check that pads are rebounding from rotor correctly. Squeeze the brake to identify which pad is not rebounding. Tighten the rebound screw until the brake pad rebounds properly when the brake is not being squeezed.
Repeat this step until the two brake arms rebound evenly. Maintain equal spacing between pad and rotor. If both arms appear to have weak rebound, tighten the adjustment screws on both arms until desired rebound is achieved. For course adjustment, slide cable casing through the truck clamp toward the brake arm with the weak rebound. This will increase rebound strength of that arm.
Check that the brake cable and cable casing are in good condition. Replace frayed or damaged parts.
If the casing cable rubs against the brake rotor, pull excess cable casing up through the brake handle and into the loop at the end of the brake handle. Check often to make sure that the cable adjustment screw and lock nut are closed and securely tightened. Closed means that the cable slots are not aligned.
Lubricate the brake cable by applying a lubricant inside the cable casing. Bicycle chain lubricant works best for this. This will improve the pad rebound by decreasing the friction between the cable and the cable casing. It is important to always check that the brake is working correctly and to your satisfaction prior to mountain boarding.
For more information about MBS brakes, check out mbs.com. That's it for the tech guide. Now you know how to install and fix everything on your mountain board. Remember, before you go out to ride, always check your hardware. Make sure everything on the board is tightened down so nothing comes loose when you're riding. For more information on MBS products, go to mbs.com. I'm Dave Stiefvater. Have fun out there, keep it safe, and see you out there.